Hi, I'm Darian Leakes, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest. She is a podcast host of the Visibility Factor and Corporate Visibility Coach, as well as an author too, no other than Miss Susan Barber.
Hello.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Susan, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me. Yes, I spent many years in corporate. And after I left corporate, I had some challenges that I had experienced there that I wanted to try to write a book and help other people be able to work through, which is how to be visible in your own authentic way. Most people are working really hard and think that that's enough to be noticed and get promoted. And unless you're talking about the accomplishments and results you get, people don't always have the time to notice that. So you have to find a way to get in front of them. And that's what the book is about.
Indeed, Miss Susan Barber. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. You frame visibility fears as a deeper than imposter syndrome. What is the core primal fear, like rejection, annihilation, or belonging loss, that you find most paralyzes leaders, and how does your approach specifically address it?
Well, most of the time they're afraid of failure, of making mistakes, of being judged or criticized. I went through all of that myself, and so I can understand where they're coming from. And what we try to do is hone into what their beliefs are that are holding them back. So it might be, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, other people in the room are, smarter and stronger than I am. So I just stay back and I hide behind other people. And so once we understand what's the situation is and what's holding them back, then we can start to flip those beliefs into something more positive. So, for example, I was in an IT organization, but I had no IT degree. And so for me, it was all these other people know way more than I do. So I should sit back and be quiet. And what I realized is that I had a lot of business knowledge that I brought to the table that they may not have had. So I think we have to leverage our unique strengths and recognize that we don't all have to have the same things. It's about leveraging what you have and using that to help you stand out. Because if you just blend in, it's hard for you to stand out then.
How do you reconcile standing in your power with the vulnerability required for true authenticity?
Well, I'm a big believer in trusting yourself. And so once you start to trust yourself, you let go of comparison. You're okay with being vulnerable because you know who you are. And when you can do that, it's such a powerful thing because you get to stand up and talk about yourself and really believe that you can do this. And I think for a long time, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't trust myself enough. And I relied on other people, thinking that I needed them to help me. And when I started letting go of that and standing on my own 2 feet and saying, you know what, you can do this, it was really empowering. And I want other people to feel that because they don't need to rely on someone else. They have a lot of power within them if they would just slow down and recognize that.
What's the crucial difference between strategic visibility and authentic visibility that forms the foundation of your book?
Well, I think authentic visibility is how you show up, what you talk about, what you say. I think strategic visibility, though, is having a plan. So you need to think about if you're going into a meeting, having a list of questions that you can use so you don't have this panicked moment of, oh my gosh, what am I going to say? I want to make sure I'm showing up the right way. So you having a list of questions can help you plan. It's also about really being intentional with what you say and the words that you use. So I have another book coming out in the fall called Your Journey to Visibility. It's a workbook. And I built that because I found that people were struggling with how to say things. They knew that they wanted more visibility, but they weren't sure how to say it. So I built this workbook with the intention of giving them scripts and examples and case studies and the things that I've learned since I put the book out that really are helping a lot of the people I teach in corporate or in workshops or when I'm speaking so that they can actually start to follow that and do it. And they come across in a much more strategic way that way.
Do it and say it, people.
Hmm.
And very well said, Miss Susan. Very well said. The visibility factor addressed the unique visibility challenges faced by women, people of color, or others from marginalized groups navigating predominantly white male leadership structures.
Hmm. They do. Yeah, I think it's something when you are the only in the room, you feel like you don't fit in and you tend to maybe sabotage yourself or kind of hide a little bit. And I wanted people to recognize that through these tools, through the visibility plans and the actions in the book, that they could start doing little things that helps them feel more confident. And it's about confidence, but confidence doesn't come unless you take actions first. And once you start taking these actions, you realize, oh my gosh, I can do this. And once you start doing it, you get more and more confidence. And so being the only in the room then just doesn't really bother you because you recognize your worth and how amazing you are and the value that you bring. And so you can stand up and be an equal with any one of those people in the room. And before you may not have thought that way. And that's what I want people to be empowered to feel like they can do.
Beyond missed promotions, what is the most profound personal or organizational cost you see when talented leaders consistently shrink from visibility?
Hmm. Well, I think it's huge because it's wasting and keeping hidden a lot of innovations, creativity, ideas, making decisions faster, feeling like you can sell your ideas to an organization or to a group that you're part of, and having people recognize that you bring a lot to the table. And I think of my own situation where I just kept quiet and sat in the back of the room and didn't say anything. Well, that's not helping me for sure, but it was also not helping my team. And what happens is a team that's not recognized as adding value, what happens? An organization says, well, we probably don't need that team anymore. We probably don't need that leader anymore. And I never want that to be the truth for anybody. I would love for people to be able to show the value on a consistent, regular basis so that they are shown as valuable and everybody can see the value that they bring.
Miss Susan, what's the first tangible action you guide readers to take externally once they've started breaking their internal visibility fears?
I mean, the first thing is really to start to pay attention to how you're showing up in a meeting. And sometimes I'll have them leverage what's called a visibility partnership. So if you don't feel like you're completely comfortable speaking up in a meeting, but someone else in the room that you trust and want to work with does, well, they can help you. So if, for example, Daniel, if you got the microphone in the room, so to speak, and you got to speak first, you could pass that over to me by saying, hey, Sue's got this really amazing idea she shared with me the other day. I really would love for her to share that with you. So you can work in partnership with other people, which I think releases that fear a bit. It's not just you standing up on your own at first, and you can talk about each other's successes. And it really does help to build your credibility in the organization. People start to hear about you and to see more about you. But I also think it's just for me, what I had to do was to start to talk about my team more and what my team was doing. And I think once I started to do that, then I recognized my own power in that. But at first, that's how I started, was just talking about them and the great things that they were doing.
How do you help leaders redefine power away from dominance or control towards the type of power that fuels authentic visibility and influence?
I mean, to me, what we need in the world right now is less of that dominant power and more of the power that's around vulnerability and transparency and helping people recognize that we're all trying to do the best we can, right? So how can we leverage, your team's strengths? How can you recognize the things that they're good at and give them feedback on a regular basis so that they can improve and grow and develop? What I find happens is that a lot of people have no time for their people, unfortunately, because they're really busy. And so then their team doesn't really know how they're doing, and everybody's trying to do the best that they can. But to me, a leader's role is to develop the next level of leaders and bring the future into the organization. So that to me is one of the primary things you have to focus on. You can't let that go because otherwise your team will flounder and they won't do as well.
Yes, people, let's develop the next leader for our next generation. Miss Susan, is it not consciously performing authenticity inherently inauthentic? How do you navigate this tension in your framework?
Well, for me, I mean, it's trying to be very conscious about what you're doing. And I think I call it if you're operating on automatic pilot where you're not paying attention to what you're saying or doing, it can be less strategic, right? It's not seen in the best way, and you're not showing the value that you can bring and the impact that you can make. So, having really consistent, intentional, conscious thinking about what you're doing and helping other people start to see that is one of the biggest important things you can do.
How do you teach leaders to solicit the process of critical feedback, essential for growth without triggering their core visibility fears and causing retreat?
Well, initially, they're probably a little hesitant to ask for feedback if they're a little more shy or introverted. So I generally teach them how to use a survey with some questions that they can choose from. And when they send that to people that either are personal and professional people, I want them to see both sides of their life because we want to make sure that you're not showing up one way in one part of your life and the other part in your personal life not the same, because that takes a lot of energy to show up two different ways. So once they send that out, they're actually so surprised to get the feedback that they had no idea how people saw them, that they saw that they had these strengths that they didn't even realize about themselves. And it's a really great exercise to do that. And then over time, as they get more confident, having one-on-one conversations with other people in the organization saying, I'd love to, hear what you think my personal brand is, for example, which is another way to say my image and how I'm perceived. Or tell me, if my team is doing something, how could we improve? How could we get better? What are some things that you see about me that I could change that would help? Or what are some things you see about me that are strengths? So as you get more confident, you're not afraid to ask that question. But in the beginning, it's a little scary. So I have people use surveys first, and then they build up their confidence because they can see how these people feel about them. And the next step of that survey is now go meet with them one on one and talk about what they shared about you, because now you're building a relationship with them. So it's also not as scary then once they've gotten these results.
Miss Susan, how does somatic awareness play a critical role in recognizing and overcoming the psychological manifestations of visibility fear?
Well, for me, it would be a pit in my stomach that I would feel that it was scary and I just didn't want to do whatever it was. And I found myself sabotaging things, not consciously. I really had no idea I was doing it, honestly. But over time, I've started to recognize how strong an intuition can be. And when I coach people, I'll ask them, is it anything in your stomach or your chest or in your head really showing up for you when you think about this thing that you might do that's bigger than where you've been before? And a lot of them never paid attention to that before. It just was something they just ignored. And so I really tried to help people recognize that your intuition, your body is trying to help you. And it's also trying to warn you of things that are scary for you. I view it as protection, right? Not something to purposely hold you back, but something it recognizes in you that you're scared and it wants to try to protect you. And you have to be a little stronger and say, you know what? I know it's scary. I know I've never done it, but I'm going to do it. I'm going to do this and I'm going to try it. And if I, have an issue, I'm going to learn from it. It's not a failure, it's a learning opportunity. So the more comfortable you get with that, you can really I rely on my intuition all the time now. It's really powerful. And for those who aren't using it, I really hope you start to, because it changed how I operated and made decisions and just lived, honestly.
Definitely. People don't afraid to commit mistake or failure because you will learn from them.
Right.
How does your approach to visible relationship building differ from fundamentally from transactional networking or especially for introverts?
Mm. Well, I think a lot of people, if you go in from a value perspective, so I'll give them some questions or give them some things to think about, but it's about building the relationship with them and asking them questions or how you can help them and support them first. And then it ultimately will be reciprocated back to you, and they're going to ask questions about you, and you get to share about what you're doing and the value that you're bringing. And as that continues to evolve, it becomes a much stronger relationship. I think sometimes there are very much transactional relationships where I need you to do something for me. And so I don't really need to spend time with you. I just want you to do the thing, whatever that is. Instead of going in knowing that you want to build a long term relationship with someone. And if you're not going in from that perspective, then you're really not doing it justice. And to me, in my company, relationships were how things got done. I would be able to get things done faster or leverage someone in the organization to help me if there was an obstacle we couldn't overcome. So the more you can leverage these relationships in advance of when you need them, it starts to be really powerful. You can find a mentor, you can find a sponsor, you can start to talk about the things you want to do in your career, you can talk about your team. So leverage these relationships in a much bigger way. Don't see them as transactional, but really they're transformational for you just as much as for that person as well.
Transformational indeed. Very well said. Again, Miss Susan, beautifully articulated. And as a podcast host and a visibility coach and an author too, what are your short term and long term goals?
Well, my first short-term goal is to get the workbook published this fall, so that has to happen first. But what I've been working on over the last few years is really getting into companies in a bigger way. So helping bigger teams, helping bigger parts of the organization recognize the importance of visibility and how they can start to do it. For a lot of people, no, I don't know, it's kind of interesting to me. I didn't know about it either until I learned it, right? But there's a lot of people in organizations who are unfamiliar with what visibility is, how to do it, and how to do it in an authentic way and not brag. And that was my limiting belief, is the only way to get visibility was to brag. And so me teaching this new approach to doing it in a much more, I'll say, authentic way. And for introverts, it's ideal because they don't have to, get up in the middle of the room and start talking just like other extroverts might. They can actually just ask a question. They can talk to someone else and share it. So for me, it's just trying to spread the message of visibility in a much bigger way on a bigger scale. And that's what the books are about and the podcast is about. And I'm going to continue to grow and scale the organization, as much as I can for any companies that I'm working with.
Good luck to your goals, Miss Susan, and looking forward for more success. What
Thank
would be
you.
your piece of advice for those people out there who want to be a podcast host, who want to be a coach, as well as want to be, create something to the world?
Mm-hmm. Don't be afraid. I think for me, it was a little scary to leave my company after 26 years and to start my own business. But I just believed in myself enough to know that if I can't do this, if I can't make it work, I will go get another job in a corporate environment. I had that to rely on. I was teaching in a grad school at the time, and I knew that I could rely on something that I would be able to do. And the podcast was something I really wanted to do before I even wrote the book. And I kept delaying on that and not doing it and pushing it off. And once the book was published in November of 2021, a friend of mine owns a podcast company. And so she said, Sue, you need to be doing a podcast. And so I literally met with her on a Thursday. And by the following Monday, I'd released my trailer for the podcast, The Visibility Factor. And that was only 4 months after I launched the book. So that was not the timing in which I thought I was going to do it. But I've been doing it ever since. I think we're at 171 episodes now, and it's been a lot of fun for me to get my voice out there for solo episodes, but also for interviews of coaches and authors and leaders that other people can learn from in their visibility journey.
Thank you for your advice, Miss Susan, and congratulations for sharing
Thank
your
you.
voice to the world. As your legacy is empowering. In an age of curated online personas, what are the key principles for maintaining authentic visibility on digital platforms without oversharing or performing?
Yeah, I think everybody has to make their own decision about how much they want to share about their lives and all of that. But for me, I just try to stay on brand. Like what I talk about in corporate and helping people become more visible, that's really my niche. And so I really focus on doing that. And it's interesting to me when people come to meet with me or come on the podcast. They say, Sue, you're exactly like who I thought you'd be. You're exactly like your videos. You're exactly like how you speak on blogs and everything else in your posts. So to me, that is exactly what I was hoping to do. I don't want to be a different person. I want to be me and continue to just do all the things that I value and build relationships with long-term intention behind them. And so that's how I operate. And I think every person who's online has to decide that for themselves, what that looks like. And I know some people are a little, further pushing the boundaries of that, I'll say. But, for me, that's just not my brand. And so I really want to help and support people. And so staying within your brand, I think, helps you with that.
Totally, genuinely like you. How does embracing authentic visibility shift how leader thinks about and builds their long-term legacy within an organization or industry?
I mean, I think when you know who you are and what you want to do and you're operating within your own style, it just feels comfortable. Once you start learning how to do this, it just becomes a part of I call it being a part of your DNA, right? It's just part of who you are. And you don't know how to operate in a different way once you do this. And I think when people are bragging, they're doing that from a place of ego and doing that from a place of, see me, look at me, versus what they may really believe and how they really want people to see them. And so for me, when you're operating from this authentic place, you're just showing up as yourself, but you're showing up with intention and you're thinking about the value that you bring and the impact that you want to make. And when you can do that, people can see whether or not you're being authentic and whether or not they want to follow you as a leader and how they want to work with you. So to me, I think about my teams, they would have done anything for me because I cared about them as people. I cared about them as human beings and I wanted them to succeed. And when you come from that place, people can feel that. And so it's a choice that I think people have to make. It does require you, spending more time with people, and not everybody wants to do that. But for me, that was the important reason why I became a leader, was to help develop the rest of my team and other people in the organization that I mentored. And then once I, started doing this, of course, it was perfect for me because it was my favorite thing to do.
Your passion indeed. Miss Susan, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people, my other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and of course my book 101 review in fifth season too, comedy 101 in second season, and food 101 in its fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast, Law 101 and Mental Health 101. Love Letters in a third season. Movie 101 review in its fourth season, as well as my Music 101 and Science 101 and Sex 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. Miss Susan, if readers truly integrate your visibility factor principles, what's the internal shift they should feel beyond external success that signals that you become the authentic leader they were meant to be?
To me, they have belief in themselves again. Most people will come to me and say, I just didn't believe in myself before I worked with you. And now I can believe in myself again. I trust that my decisions are the right ones to make. And even if I make a mistake, I know I'll learn from it, like I talked about earlier. But it's really just becoming the person that they want to be. And it's not trying to be like everybody else. That's, I think, what we're taught growing up, right? You want to try to be this person, and everybody tries to be the same. Stand out, trust yourself, and know that you can do this. And once they do that, it's like they can fly. It's really fun to watch them make that shift internally, because once you make that shift internally, everything else changes. Your behaviors, your actions, how you show up, how you feel about yourself, all of that changes when you start to recognize that you're an amazing person. And you may have had some situations that someone gave you bad feedback or someone told you something and you believed them. But those are choices. You don't have to believe those things. You get to decide what it is you want to do with your life. And I just help them start to see that for themselves and imagine new possibilities and look at things from a different perspective that they didn't realize that they could do before. I call it, give it a permission slip, like Brene Brown talks about, right? The more you have your own permission slip, you get to do with it whatever you want. And I just don't think people grow up learning that.
Grow up and learn, people, and you need to learn every day. Miss Susan Barber, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And can you please invite our listeners to support the Visibility Factor?
Of course, yes. You can find me on LinkedIn, which is where I spend a lot of my time, or susanbarber.com is my website. I would love to have anybody read the book, listen to the podcast. The book is on ebook, audiobook, and print. And then look out for the workbook, which is coming out in the fall, Your Journey to Visibility. Would love to have you check it out and let me know what you think of it.
Yes, Miss Susan, I'm inviting you to come back and let's talk about your workbook itself.
Sure.
And let's promote to the world. Yes, people, let's support Miss Susan Barber, because if you support her, more and more and more empowering episode of the podcast itself, more and more and more empowering books to come. So, Miss Susan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
More to come, people. See you soon.